So the last one is the Surviving Spy.
Surviving Spy, to be honest, is just kind of lame. It's the guy who survives long enough to get back to your camp. So instead of
Yep.
focusing too much on that, because that seems very self-explanatory, I just want to read to you kind of the rest of Sun Tzu's Five Spies tribe here on this. So he says, so if a secret piece of news is divulged by a spy before the time is right, he must be put to death together with the man to whom the secret was told. Whether the object is to crush an army or to storm a city or to assassinate an individual, it is always necessary to begin by finding out the names of the attendants, the aides, and the doorkeepers and sentries of the general in command. Our spies must be commissioned to ascertain these. The enemy spies who have come to spy on us must be sought out, tempted with bribes, led away, and comfortably housed. Thus they will become converted spies and available for our service. It is through this information brought by the converted spy that we're able to acquire and employ local and inward spies. It is owing to his information again that we can cause the doomed spy to carry false tidings to the enemy. Lastly, it's by his information that the surviving spy can be used on appointed occasions. The end and aim of spying in all of its five varieties is knowledge of the enemy. This knowledge can only be derived in the first instance from the converted spy. Hence, it's essential that the converted spy be treated with utmost liberty. So you can see that Sun Tzu really placed a lot of stuff on the converted spy, but there's a lot to unpack in that. And what I really like about it is the concept of if a spy says something that they're not supposed to say, you need to get rid of them immediately. And this is a great hook. And we've talked about this hook before, but this is a great hook for, like, we use this hook if, like, what if your players just kill your hook? Well, this is one way to do it. So if let's say that your players just go into the tavern because it's the horrible trope, but your players are in some location and this guy comes up to them and gives them a very cryptic message and then is immediately killed after providing the cryptic message. That's exactly what just happened.
Yep.
The spy gave information he wasn't supposed to give to people he wasn't supposed to give it to, and thus that person dies. Now, immediately, your team is going to be hunted because they have that information. And so that could become an entire adventure where now you're literally roped into a political intrigue thing that your guys aren't even a part of because your rogue looked like the guy that the spy was supposed to give information to, and he did it.
Or the spy got a little bit too much to drink and then he just started babbling and you just happen to be the people who listened to him.
Yeah, you just happen to be like sitting next to him at the table.
And unlike anybody else in that room, you have the power to survive the assassination attempts that will be happening.
Well, there's a horrible thing, right? So all of a sudden, like maybe the spy is talking drunkenly really loud, and the next thing you know, fireball.
Yeah.
Like there's one of the guys in the back was like, "What just happened?" And he casts fireball to kill everybody in the room because of what just got told.
Yep.
You guys are high enough level that, I mean, first of all, the rogue's probably just going to skip around the fireball and not take any damage. But the other guys are going to be like, "Okay, that was painful, but we're still alive."
Yeah, well.
But now you have this wizard that's fighting you, and you're like, "Holy crap, that just came out of nowhere." And you're not sure what's going on. So say you killed that wizard, but then there's this group of people that are after you. Because, well, who survived that? And they know there's no way that wizard would have fireballed the tavern unless something was said or overheard that shouldn't have been. Who walked away? Oh, those 4 people. Okay.
Yep.
And now you got to hope. So this could become your entire mystery of your campaign of like, who are these guys hunting me? Why are they hunting me? And in reality, it's just because you heard some piece of information that you don't even connect is real.
Well, the other thing you could have as well is so you clear out a dungeon.
Right. Yep.
And there's a little box that you guys couldn't figure out how to open.
Oh, nice.
But in that box
is a secret.
There's information that you guys are not supposed to have.
Right.
And then you might have sold it because you can't open it and it was slightly magical, so you got a grand out of it. But they still think that
you have it.
Kind of going back to Teapot of Vecna.
Yeah. Well, and it's like it's a planted item, right? So it's where we go into this dungeon, we plant this item, then someone else comes in this dungeon, they pick up planted item. And maybe it's a dungeon that's filled with like let's just say fungi, right? Like some mushroom people. And they go in and out of there without any problems because they can cast something that basically hides their scent as human, and then they just walk through, or they just rub themselves down really quick with this mushroom paste, and they walk through, and the mushroom people just leave them alone, or they have a deal with the mushroom people just to be like, hey, these two guys are fine to come and go.
Alter self is at a high enough level for a wizard to walk in.
Yeah, they just look like one of the people there. Or you have a druid turns into a rat, runs through.
Yep.
Mushroom people aren't going to mess with a rat. There's thousands of rats. It morphs, grabs the box, remorphs, goes back out,
Yep.
And that's how they send messages to one another is, a rat or a bunny goes in, leaves a box, another rat or another bunny goes in, picks up the box and leaves again. And the mushroom people are literally oblivious to this whole thing happening. And it's a great hiding spot. So what I like about the whole concept that Sun Tzu talked about in terms of spies is that spies are in some ways overutilized in the game without even realizing it. Like the local spies, you're constantly gathering information and stuff. But in other ways, totally underutilized in all sorts of ways because there's so many different things you could do with them, even without having to do this grand level of stuff. I mean, you could use them in a guild. You can use them in a faction. You could use it even in a faction inside of your own kingdom, right? You could use it in Kingdom Wars if you want, right? As long as you don't make your war racially based, and by racially based, I'm talking about D&D racially based. So like all the goblins are evil and all the humans are good, and so they're always fighting each other. As long as you don't do that, it's easier to do these spy things. Because obviously if a human and a goblinoid are talking, it's because one of them is a spy.
Yes.
There's just no other way around it.
Yes.
In that case. But if your war is more of this kingdom of elves and dwarves and all the player characters available to you is going against this other kingdom with also all the player characters available to them, right? All the player starting races plus a handful of weird people. There's always a drow that's good. I'm joking about that. But there's always some weird there's a minotaur in that group. Well, yeah, he's settled down and lives with the humans. And there's always some weird oddity people. But point is, as long as you're not doing this dwarves versus gnomes type of a thing, then you can easily do spies really well because you're not exactly sure who, just by looking at somebody, you can't just be like, oh, well, they're the enemy, which I think is a more fantastical and better way to go anyway. I mean, if you think about Sun Tzu's time, Sun Tzu is in China, and it's basically this city-state, if you even can call it a city-state, but this warlord feudal group is fighting this other warlord feudal group, and it's not like there's for the most part, there may be some regional differences you could see pretty quickly and some dialectical issues if I go to the south, I can hear a different tone than what I'm doing now if I come to where I would live. Very, very minor makeup or just throwing a cloak over a guy. Exactly.
He can pass for...
Exactly. It's not like, okay, we're going to go, Jacob and I are going to go to the Congo and infiltrate as spies. It's like, probably not. It's more of a so Jacob and I are going to go up to Boulder and infiltrate. Sure, won't take much, right? We're going to go to the Colorado Springs next and infiltrate. Not going to take much. Would take a little bit more if we were going to go down to Texas and pass ourselves off as natives, right? Because we don't have that accent. We could fake the accent, but we also don't have the idioms down. We could fake the idioms.
We would need to learn the idioms. We would need to learn different mannerisms.
Exactly. And that's exactly how this whole thing kind of works, right? Is think about it from that perspective. How could your people be spies? And don't set up a system, in my opinion, that is just very okay, all goblins are evil. Go kill all goblins. In my opinion, don't set up a Lord of the Rings scenario.
Yes, because it's really hard to do that because now you're only having a high-level sorcerer or a wizard who has ultra self or high-level rogue with disguise and is of that build. So a halfling would be the only one that could do a goblin just because of the size.
And speaking of Lord of the Rings, and we're kind of nearing our end of time, but speaking of Lord of the Rings, the spying that happened was from people basically infiltrating a location and just hiding.
Yes.
And watching troop movement and then trying to get themselves out. there wasn't like, oh, this is, you know, Aguz, the leader of this one weird orc clan that's decided to come and talk to Strider.
Yep,
you know, and the Rangers. It's like,
it was also birds, because you have all the ravens that were the eyes of Sauron.
And you had that, you had the birds from Sauron, but you also had the eagles from the good guys. So you had a lot of, like, anything that could fly could be a spy. For either side. But we're not talking about the Sun Tzu type of spies where you're using human or humanoid capital to get your stuff done. You know, so
one of the things I was going to mention real quick.
Yeah.
With things like Ultra Self, or with things of druids transforming, or things like polymorph.
Right.
You could actually have somebody as a spy, kind of like how in Shannara with the changeling that infiltrated and killed the king and then became the king. You could actually have the same similar situation where high-level sorcerer is now the king's advisor.
Yep. Well, and the other thing too is that you, in a future context, you could have reconstructive facial surgery.
Yes.
You could have, like if you watch the movie Gattaca, like no one looked at pictures anymore because everything was all DNA based. So if you could figure out a way of like mimicking the DNA of the person that you're trying to be. Harry Potter had the polyjuice potion, and even had an entire year where one of the professors was masquerading as another professor, and the real professor was locked in a trunk.
Yes.
And so you have all these like problems, which, by the way, on that note, that professor, I'm not going to name who it was, but the actual professor was one of the evil people, and that one evil person actually taught the students more about how to defend against darkness and kill the dark people than anybody that they ever had. Anyway,
he was the best dark arts teacher, even though that he was directly trying to cause them all harm.
Yes,
he actually. Because if I remember correctly, he taught them all the curses.
The three unforgivable curses, and he taught them how to actually withstand against the one that you could. You can't defend against a couple of them, but the one you could, he showed them how. And then when the Dark Lord used it on the hero, he was able to defend against it because he'd had it cast on him like 17,000 times over the year. So in a lot of ways, like that whole plan was
one job, and he failed.
Oh, he miraculously did that job really well. That was the problem. He taught them all how to survive. Anyway, okay, point is, back to this, spies are really kind of cool in your game if you can incorporate them in a way that makes sense. And just remember that, you know, if you haven't, there's 5 of them, and each of the different 5 has a different point. And if you use the different points in different ways, you can come up with some really cool adventures. And if you haven't seen the rest of those series, please click on the playlist right above us for that spy series. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.